Hey, it's Chuck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. And welcome in to Buckeye Studios Southeast as we are down in Florida this week. Don't let the background fool you. I'm not at home. I'm not in Buckeye Studios. Look, it's a screen. Huh? How about that? Pretty cool, right? My buddy Chad used to accuse me of having a green screen down in the studio. For real. He thought it was a green screen, and it was like a picture of somebody else's basement or something that I put up there, which admittedly that might have worked now that I see how good this is, but no such thing. It's the real deal. A lot of wasted money in helmets and such, I'll tell you that. Anyway, guys, what an unbelievable weekend of football, I think. And I try not to be too hyperbolic, but when I look at the big stories that came out of this past weekend, I think, and we always say this, the craziest weekend of college football, like this might have been the craziest weekend of college football I've ever experienced. When we look at the stories and the magnitude of the stories that came out of Penn State and Indiana. What happened at Penn State this season is, I mean, it's an all-timer story. It's one that will go down into the record books for the most strange turn of events we've ever seen, because I still contend that had Penn State, who was winning in overtime at Oregon, won that game, they would be 6-0, number 2, right behind Ohio State, everything in front of them, feeling on top of the world. And here we sit. James Franklin's not their coach anymore. They've got players. We'll talk about them. But it is just unbelievable, like that they had so much invested in finally getting over the hump, and it kind of all hinged on that Oregon game for them. Like they, just similar to Ohio State and Texas, planning for that game all off season. It seemed like Penn State had it all invested in that Oregon game. And after so many close failures, that one just devastated it. It tore everything down. They went out to UCLA, lost, and clearly the team had given up. You saw guys laughing during the loss. The comments that Dennis Sutton made at the press conference talking about the run defense or something. And he was, I don't know, we got someone who's on that job, or it was just like it didn't feel like they gave a crap anymore. And that's really wild, especially from the seniors who forewent the NFL to come back. But the amount of money that they spent to get those guys back, to bring in Jim Knowles, pay Andy Kotelnicki, who I've told you guys for a year and a half, people just like to say that guy's name. He is garbage. He's nothing. He told us himself when he described his offense. He said it's like a blizzard. Just, take a basic offense and then throw a little of this and a little of that on it. That's not some offensive guru, just a dude who calls offense. And he's nothing. Jim Knowles gave up more points at UCLA than Ohio State's given up all year, which, by the way, 41 points on the year for the Buckeyes through 6 games, the fewest points through 6 games by any team since 1975. That's before your boy was born. How about that? We're talking about a generational Ohio State defense we're looking at right now, and we'll get more into that. But Penn State fires James Franklin, and I feel like this is it's something that had to happen based on the mob mentality and how it had turned. It was just a totally untenable situation, and I think this video kind of shows that, him walking off for the final time. By the way, my son Carmen was at this game, coincidentally. My son has some buddies at State College. He goes out and hangs out with them. He went to the game this weekend, and he's texting me from the game as they're playing Northwestern, and it was tight, so I was having a fun time with him. Didn't think they were going to lose, and at the time still thought, like, look, everything's ahead of them still. I doubt they're going to beat Ohio State. I doubt they're going to beat Indiana, but if they win those 2 games, they're still in the playoffs. Here we go. And he's at the game. This is a video from the end of the game. Franklin walking out for the final time as the Penn State coach down. I don't know if you saw that movie, but he waited and had his daughters walk ahead of him so that they weren't right next to him as they booed and jeered him when he walked down that tunnel, because they sell access, I guess, to have them, the folks can come stand close. But that happened before, not long ago. It was actually after the Oregon game, and he was walking off with his daughters, and a lot of people were accusing him of like using them as a shield. And I'm just like, dude, he shouldn't need to use them as a shield. Like, regardless, like that just seems so. I feel bad for the guy. I really do. I mean, it's not like he didn't try his best, right? And sure, he got after some fans sometimes here and there, but the way we saw this fizzle out, and I know I get on him for getting up in his press conferences and every time he loses and talking about like everything he's done in the past 12 years and just not look, let's just own the loss at hand today. You can talk about your legacy later. I think that's kind of a way to skirt responsibility or, remind people like, hey, all I've done for you. But to be honest, he has been a great coach for Penn State, and they have just recently made this commitment to turn it around, and not turn it around, but to invest at the highest level to try to be a national championship contending program. They didn't before. They didn't for the first 8 years of his career. And they just kind of started last year. And this year was the first year where he had everything that other schools that are fighting for national championships have: full investment, full coaching staff money. Like, he had it all. And this was his first opportunity. And it would seem to me, if you are going to make that investment, that you would at least give the guy a couple of years. Unfortunately, the way it's gone this year, the way the team quit, I certainly understand why they got rid of him. But the turn of events from where we were at starting this season to where we're at now, unbelievable. It really is. So, yeah, man, just a crazy story, but none crazier than Indiana. And I tried reluctantly, not reluctantly, I tried really hard to not accept what we were seeing was real last year with Indiana. Yeah, a good team, a cool story, whatever. And heading into this year, there were a lot of people. My buddy College Football with Sam was really high on him again. I was like, Sam, you're crazy. They're like, they got the 7th best odds to win the Big Ten. But man, the more I looked at the team, it's like, gosh, they really do have almost everybody coming back. It certainly makes sense that they would be really, really good again. I didn't expect they'd be this good. I liked Fernando Mendoza at Cal. When we look what this guy's done, and we look back, like, just through my life, the most impressive like come up we've seen was what Dabo did at Clemson. And he took a good program and made them great. And it took a lot longer period of time for him to do that because you couldn't infuse transfer portal talent into a roster back then. But what he was able to do was the most impressive, to me, feat of turning a program into something since Bobby Bowden at Florida State, which was, before my memory, the building of that. So that, to me, Dabo was like kind of sitting on his own in my lifetime. And I think that what we've seen Cignetti do is the new era version of what he did at Clemson. But in this era, because of the transfer portal, you can do it at a place like Indiana, who has been the historical doormat of the Big Ten all my life. All your life, however old you are. You could be 75. It's been the historical doormat forever when it comes to Indiana football. They just got out at Oregon their second top 5 win in program history. It's 100-some years of football. And it certainly helped that he was a coach and had some really good players at James Madison that he was able to bring with him. So that helped kickstart it. But the guy's just been damn near flawless. And last year, when he played Notre Dame and he played Ohio State, it was like, all right, he got his butt kicked. But was that a fair shot, literally playing the 2 teams that were in the national championship? Maybe we'd like to see some levels to this, right? And this year, I wasn't expecting a ton. They look like juggernauts. Head out to Oregon. I thought they would keep it close. The line was 7.5 or 8.5. I thought they would get in that line, but I had Oregon winning. And they made Oregon look very, very average. Now, this Oregon team, I don't think is as good as last year's team, which I'm not trying to take anything away from Indiana's win. I said that last week, but it's still a really good team with a ton of talent, seemingly much more talent than Indiana. We're talking about high-level recruiting, high-level porter classes built up for now 3 years in that Oregon program. They're pretty loaded. By the way, the pick 6 by Brandon Finney, who we waited too damn long to offer, and that's why he got out to Oregon. Now he's a true freshman starting, and he looks awesome. He's the one starting ahead of Dorian Brew and Naeem Offord, which is just a real – sorry, excuse my language. But what we've seen out of Indiana is crazy. And for all my my Buckeye brethren who've been rooting on their nice little Indiana story and how fun it's been, we got to deal with these dudes now. Like, they're a legit threat. And it looks like right now the odds would say Ohio State and Indiana are going to meet in the Big Ten championship. And that is the second best team in the country to me. It really is. The Buckeyes are number 1. They're number 2. By the way, I just saw this. There's these SEC accounts. You got Big Ten accounts, SEC accounts, way more SEC ones on Twitter, and they just pump out SEC propaganda. And it's these type of people that have built up this animosity amongst folks who live within the Big Ten footprint for the last 15 years. And that's where we're seeing this huge blowback from Big Ten folks now that the Big Ten is clearly on top. And this dude tweeted out the schedules remaining from Indiana and Ohio State versus the schedules remaining of the top 2 SEC teams, Ole Miss and Texas A&M. Would you believe that? Now, compare Indiana and Ohio State this year to Ole Miss, who literally was in a game late with Washington State on Saturday. Washington State, the team that Washington beat 59-24 the week before we played Washington, and shut Washington down. This team couldn't stop Washington. They didn't stop them one time. Washington didn't punt the whole game. They scored every single possession. They went down and held Ole Miss to 24 or 31 points. And they were in the game until late in the fourth. And Ole Miss just barely squeaked out with a win. So that is one of their top 2 teams. And Texas A&M. I think Mike Elko's doing a really good job. They went up and beat Notre Dame. It's his second year. That team is not there talent-wise to compete at the highest level. And Marcel Reed, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying him as a championship caliber quarterback. Those 2 teams are flawed. They're good teams. But if that's the best you're pumping out of the SEC, buddy, that's an issue. But something, man. It's something, the turn we've seen between these 2 conferences. And clearly the Big Ten, not just with the high-level talent, I think it's now going to be a little different as we look forward. Because let's say, for instance, we're looking at Washington, who is now 5-1. And no, they haven't really beaten anybody yet, but clearly a really good team. We just saw Damon Williams pass for like 400 yards, rush for 100, 500 total yards. And USC, their big win. And we'll get to that for a minute, but I want to pull up the top 25. As we just pull up the top 25 and take a look here. So we've got Ohio State, Miami, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss at our top 5. Alabama beats Missouri in a really clutch win, but Alabama obviously with that huge flaw, losing to Florida State, who lost again. They are now 3-3, and Mike Norvell probably going to get canned, which means Florida and Florida State will both come available here probably this year. Texas Tech at number 7, Oregon at number 8, Georgia number 9, LSU number 10. When we look back for the next Big Ten team, we're all the way down to number 20. USC is number 20, and then Nebraska at number 25. Now, USC is a blue blood program, as is Nebraska. They are both one-loss teams, and USC in particular, they got a lot of talent, and that's obvious. My question would be to the people who do the polls, what is it that separates Tennessee from USC that makes you put Tennessee at number 11? Tennessee, who just really struggled to beat Arkansas on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about Georgia Tech that would make you think Georgia Tech is much better than USC? And in my list of hate, it goes Michigan, SC, Miami. So I'm certainly not stumping for SC, but I am saying that the way they're looking at this is going to need to start getting recalibrated, where that benefit of the doubt would consistently go to the SEC. We're still seeing it, though. We're still seeing it with examples like Tennessee right there. Why isn't that benefit of the doubt just given to USC? These are the things that I think we're going to start seeing. And when we do, when they pull up these stupid schedule comparisons, well, all of a sudden, you're going to see the shiny little numbers next to more of the Big Ten schedules as well. But it's not there yet. It's not there yet. It seems to me like it's taking a little too long to catch on. Let's get to that Michigan game, by the way. So there's a really interesting situation going on in Michigan. I don't know what your expectations were as an Ohio State fan about them this year. My expectations were it was going to look a little something like this. I thought that they would probably lose 2 games before heading into the game and be a 3-loss regular season team just missing the playoffs, with Ohio State having the opportunity to knock them out. It's perfectly set up for that right now, so long as they don't lose from now to the game. And I love that for Ryan Day. I love him to have that opportunity. I think this is the year he gets off the schneid with them and sends them packing home. However, this loss out at USC, they go out there and just get absolutely mollywopped. They gave up 158 yards to a walk-on running back for USC, which is just pathetic. And they tout themselves on their defense. Obviously, their offense is not putrid, but it's pretty one-dimensional. Though freshman wide receiver Andrew Marsh did come on, he is someone that they thought was going to be some game breaker, and he's a really good, talented wide receiver. He's not some dynamic wide receiver that's like program changing. Certainly not a guy you would want to be Bryce Underwood's number 1 moving forward. Like, he's just not that type of dude to me. But Bryce, he's going to struggle. He's a freshman. Do we see things that look good? Yeah. But do we also see some things that look bad? Certainly. I think what I hated the most coming out of that game was the smiling on the sideline in the fourth quarter down by 20 points. Like, there's pictures of it. I guess. All right, I'll pull up a picture. I mean, this is like super hating and maybe super old man. I don't know. Maybe you guys can accuse me of that too. I can just tell you, if this was an Ohio State quarterback smiling on the sidelines, like, dude, time and place, man. You were the leader of the football team. You just took this trip out there to California to beat this team, and they're beating you pretty handily in the fourth quarter. No smiles. That's no smiles. That's bad optics. You're the leader. Look serious. And to me, that would bother the hell out of me if it was an Ohio State quarterback. I would say it, and I'm sure there's a lot of Ohio State fans who would tell me I'm being a jerk for saying it and whatever. Somebody told him a joke, whatever. I don't care. Optics are optics, and there are certain things you need to know as a leader. And he'll grow and he'll learn, or maybe he won't. Let's not forget this Michigan program under Sherone Moore is the same program you saw a staffer go up into the stands and smack somebody, right, who was heckling. Like, yeah, dude, hecklers happen at away stadiums. Welcome to college football. I consistently see things like when guys are playing against them, running the ball, they run to the go out of bounds by Michigan's sideline. They'll swipe at the ball really hard. And just like, I mean, like, they're just out of line, man. They're just consistently out of line. And when we look at Sherone Moore, this dude, what I said when he first got hired was, this guy is a MAC caliber head coach, and maybe would have gotten on the open market when Michigan hired him a low-level Big 12 job. But that would have been about his ceiling on the open market when Michigan hired him. That's where he was at in his career development. And now, Michigan fans got really mad at that, of course. Now they're saying the same thing. They're furious on the message boards. And here's where I don't get it. I don't know what they were expecting this year, because right now I think Michigan's doing exactly like they're right on pace. This is the perfect pace you would want them to be on if you were thinking, all right, next year we'll have a shot at the playoffs. Maybe Bryce's junior year, we'll have a shot to make a run at the national championship. Like, they're right on that pace, and this isn't good enough for them. All of a sudden, they think because they won a national championship under Harbaugh that they're Ohio State and they're just going to reload and go after it every year. And that's not who they are. They've never been that. Why do they think that they're that now? I don't understand. But they're furious with Sherone Moore, and now they're calling out all of his look. He's got a big learning curve. He makes coaching blunders all the time. He is cocky. They don't like his arrogance. He speaks in an arrogant way. And now they're pointing all these things out and turning on him. And there's a lot of message board wars going on in the Michigan space, which you hate to see, man. You hate to see it happen to such nice folks. But it's pretty funny, man. But I cannot wait. I'll be rooting for them until the game because I want Ryan Day to have that opportunity to beat them. So that's our wrap around college football. When it comes to the Buckeyes, we have now reached the halfway point. And some pretty cool defensive statistics. I got a graph to show you. Actually, a couple of graphs that I ran across over the weekend as I was traveling down here to Orlando to Buckeye Studios Southeast with the fam, except for Carm. Carm was at Penn State. He did not want to come, so he'll be back manning the house and taking care of the animals by himself. But check this stat out. Oh, this is a different stat, by the way. I wanted to show you this, guys. This will tie into the conversation I want to have about something that Ari and I were talking about the other day that some of you guys took issue with. And I want to explain a little further. But I heard your comments. I will address them. Ryan Day has coached 99% of his games as the Ohio State head coach, with the Buckeyes being a top 10 team. 84 out of 85 games this guy has coached. His team has been a top 10 team in the country. Look at the names on this list. Tom Osborne, Kirby Smart, Barry Switzer, and Pete Carroll, and none of them are even close. 99%. The conversation that Ari and I are having, or the conversation Ari and I were having, was about the fan experience as an Ohio State fan. And I think it's a really interesting dialogue, and it hits on something I've talked about for years. And that is, being an Ohio State fan is obviously great. You root for the team that has the most unprecedented success of anybody in the country for this century. It's ridiculous. That statistic says it all. 99% of Ryan Day's team, 84 games out of the last 85, our team has been in the top 10. Programs dream of this. Like, I remember being young when the Buckeyes got into the top 10. It was a huge thrill. It was like, we're in the top 10. I mean, it meant something serious. Now it's just Tuesday, right? It's just Tuesday every Tuesday. But what he meant was there are so few games on the schedule as an Ohio State fan playing in the old Big Ten where you actually had these games where we could get up, where it was exciting, where there was a thought, we might lose today. And that's the thought that gets the energy in the fan base. When there's an opportunity that you might take an L. And those type games, we have so few, fewer than anybody. We have maybe one out of conference, and then we would have Penn State and Michigan. And once in a while, you'd get a team that would pop up like Wisconsin or Michigan State that would be like, there, we got a fourth this year. We got a fourth, but it might just be a third because maybe the out of conference that year wasn't a very good one because you got to schedule it 7 years in advance. So that was the point he was making, was there are so few opportunities that Ohio State fans get compared to other fan bases to have those big time games. And before the playoffs, then you get your bowl game afterwards. Then you get your bowl game afterwards. So you might have 4 games a year where it was like maximum excitement college football. Now, if you put your mind space to that of an Iowa fan, for instance, and look at an Iowa schedule. Let's pretend we're Iowa fans. We grew up in Iowa, so we're Iowa fans, and we know our team, where their standing is in the world. And then we look at the Iowa schedule for the year. And let's run down the schedule and think, how many of these games, looking at the Iowa schedule, are we going to get up for? How many of these games are going to be super exciting? Well, we start off with Iowa State, game 2. That's a really exciting game. So there's one game we're like all the way up. Then we've got Indiana in week 5. In that game, we will be the underdogs, but we could pull off a big win. They're coming into our house. Iowa almost did pull off that win. And that's going to be a huge one. So we're going to be all the way up for that. Then we got Wisconsin, a team that has been kind of, on our caliber for a long time. We got an opportunity to go beat them down. and I'm sure we have some dialogue with their fans, so that'll be extra fun. Then we got Penn State. We'll be the underdog for that one. We got to try to pull that one off. That's at home too. So Penn State coming in, that is another huge game we're getting up for. Then Minnesota, look, they're kind of on our level, right? So that's it's probably a 60-40 type game that we're going to win, but that's an exciting game. We're going to get up for that. Then we've got Oregon and USC back to back. Are you kidding me? Huge games for anybody, but really big for Iowa. Obviously, we're going to be the underdog in both of those games. Then we got Michigan State, who's coming up a little bit. We'll probably beat them. And then we got our rival, Nebraska. There's like 8 games, and that's just a regular year. And that's what he was saying, that in a regular year, most programs have like 8 games where they are fully engaged. And I can tell you like how much you guys are engaged by the numbers on the show. The difference between a week where we have a exciting game like Washington, for instance, which, we went into that game knowing we were going to win the game. Did anyone think Ohio State was going to lose to Washington? Really? We knew we were going to win. But the fact that it was a good opponent and a cool experience, like the numbers for that game, the numbers on my show and every other Buckeye show for the week were huge compared to, the following week. And then Illinois, slight uptick. And then it'll go way down for next week. Like this show right here, this will do half the numbers of 2 Mondays ago when we were going to go play Washington. We just get much fewer of those opportunities. Now, of course, there's a trade-off to that. The trade-off is we've had a tremendous amount of regular season success, no doubt. You could pencil Ohio State into, a 10-win season every year for the last 25 years, and things will change next year. This is why I love Big Ten expansion. So while we didn't get the benefit of it this year, next year we get a schedule that actually benefits us with the Big Ten expansion in the excitometer, we'll call it. That's a really stupid phrase. I'll have to work on that one, guys. Sorry. But next year's schedule is glorious. We have Texas. We have Indiana. Texas and Indiana might be both in the top 5 next year going into the season. So that's 2 top 5 teams. We're at Iowa, and that's always a tough one to play at Kinnick. We're at Nebraska. That's 2 awesome road games. We got Illinois coming back home. Decent game. Maryland at Maryland, and that's never been an issue for us, but they're getting better. Of course, we got the game. We've got Northwestern coming in. That's the only dog on the schedule. And then we've got Oregon, and we are at USC. Finally get to play USC. So that schedule right there has USC, Oregon, Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska, Indiana, Texas. That's 7 games right there. 7 games. We are going to get absolutely amped up to the T's for a big time game. And that's what he was talking about, the Ohio State fan experience not being as great as others. Now, there are some people, a lot of you, a lot more than I thought there were, and I've met you since I've started this show. We all dig the sport differently. There are some of you who really only care about the regular season in terms of, does it get me to the playoff to advance? And then that's what I care about. And I understand where you're coming from. That's kind of the NFL model. That's kind of most sports model. That's not why specifically the exact opposite of that is what I loved about college football and what drew me to it, the importance of the regular season and how much fun the regular season was. And now we're kind of in this balancing act. And we, even the head coach of our football teams basically says he doesn't say this, but what he's saying by how he's playing the regular season is like, this isn't that important. We're going to save it for then. And as someone who loves the regular season, I hate that. I get the premise. I get it. Yeah, sure. It makes sense. If that is your one and only goal, I just don't think that the goal of the team should be like to coast and just do as minimal as possible and win, because now we're going to just snap our fingers and turn it on in the postseason. I actually think there's a lot of hubris to that. I think that playing a season half speed, and they're not playing at half speed, but you know what I mean? Playing it like we're not going to try our best. We're not going to play our best offense. We're not going to play up tempo. And if we need that later on in a big time game in the playoffs, we'll be able to snap our fingers and it'll go off without a hitch. I think these things need rep. They need practice. You need to draw on previous experiences. You get into a game in the playoffs where you got to play 80 offensive plays and you've been playing 59. Like, can your guys even handle that? I don't know. You're just limiting yourself to a lot of unknowns, right? You got a lot of unknowns entering the playoffs because you have not done these things and you haven't played the regular season like you normally would. And I think it's a lot of hubris to it. So not only that, but it is much less exciting and it's much less fun. The numbers are all down. There's just things about it that I disagree with. And if one goal, the one single goal, the only thing this is about is winning a championship, I get it. And if that's all you care about, I get that too. But I'll have people say to me, like, how could you possibly disagree with this? And I just try to explain, like, that's not the only thing that matters to me. Similar to the people who say, like, the game doesn't matter anymore. You can lose it and win a championship. Well, if the only thing that matters to you is the championship, yes. This sport was never even designed to have a singular national champion. There are 134 teams. Like, that's not how this sport was designed, wasn't how it started. I get that that's where it's going, but I'm going to hold on to as much fun as I can in my regular season as long as I can. And anyway, I don't even know how I got into that. I did. Ari's conversation and saying the Ohio State fan experience sucks. That's what he was talking about, the amount of games to get up for. So I just wanted to address that because I got a lot of comments about that from that episode we did. Now, all right, here's that Buckeyes defensive graphic I wanted to show you. 6.8 points per game. And this is despite allowing 16 last game. We were averaging 5. 6.8 points a game, fewest since 1975 through 6 games now. 229 yards per game. That is the fewest since 2007. And that to me is amazing. 229 yards in this era of college football. That is just clamping you down. 3.9 yards per play, the fewest since 2019. And then you got 4 offensive touchdowns total, the fewest since 2007. And that right there should be 3. And I bet if it was 3, that 2007 would have kicked way back. But you gave up that garbage time touchdown, and that sucked. Really hated to see that, but whatever, is what it is. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, we have got 73 defensive snaps were played. A couple of things that popped. Devin Sanchez played 67 in his first time starting. That is a ton of reps. That's awesome. Graded out, middle of the pack. Caden Curry played 61 snaps from defensive end. That is a ton, man. That guy's motor is insane. And then we had Kenyatta, who played 52, and I thought Kenyatta played a really good game. Things haven't popped for him statistically, but it feels like he's right there. I feel like he's going to have one of these banger huge games here coming up soon. Ty Malone Jr., the big surprise on the day, as we have seen him get better and better the last 3 games, 46 snaps on the day, which is a ton from a big man. 40 for K-Mac. Will Smith Jr. with 32. That's his season high. Bo Atkinson with 24. And then we had Peyton Pierce. So they were playing 3 linebackers, 22 of those snaps he got. And then Aaron Scott played 19. Jason Moore, first action of the year, 13 snaps. Jason Moore in for Jarquez Carter, where we would normally see Jarquez Carter recently. And that's going to be interesting. So what are we going to see behind Ty Malone, who is the clear starter now? Edric is injured. How long is he going to be out? Don't know. But when he comes back, you got him. Now you got Jason Moore and Jarquez Carter, who've all had some playing time. Who's eventually going to take those snaps? It's going to probably be 2 of them, right? Not 3, maybe a little bit for the third. But is there an opportunity here for Jason Moore? Did he play good enough to, eat into some more of those snaps, even if Edric is healthy? We'll see. What about Jarquez? He played some high leverage moments against Minnesota, did well, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, did really good. Other guys that got some garbage time that, it's not even worth mentioning. 3-4 snaps for Epi, Riley Pettijohn, Fahim Delane, Miles Lockhart, and that'll do it. On the offensive side of the ball, Tegra played 51 snaps, and then subbing in on the rest of his snaps, you had 14 for Josh Padilla. The running backs, CJ Donaldson with 31 snaps, Bo Jackson with 20, Jimmy DePeoples with 13, And tight end snaps, we had Will Kazmarek with 43, Max Clare with 36. Then we had Bennett Christian with 20, Jelani with 9, Nate with 8. As we look at the Buckeyes wrapping up kind of the Illinois game, which, boy, a lot of different mixed reactions about that Illinois game. Definitely, there's a lot of people who are not too happy with that. When I look at that game, I just, you remember the context here of this is a team that very well might be a playoff team. And if you think about it like that, then it all kind of feels much better to you if you're someone who's not feeling great about the running game, which wasn't good at all. And I've got a couple nitpicks on this team halfway through the season, and we'll go through them. But all in all, the good surprises and the team way ahead of schedule from where I think anybody in their wildest dreams could have imagined. Like at this point in the year, let's take it back to the summer. Did you think the Buckeyes would be the unequivocal number one in the country? If you did, that's awesome. They are. If you didn't, and I'm guessing most of you didn't, well, bam, right? We're way ahead of schedule. And this is a learning curve and a learning process with a new quarterback who, by the way, through the first 6 weeks of the season, the number one PFF rated passer in the country, number one in the country, our little Julian. So going back to the beginning of the year to where you're at now, you may have a couple nitpicks, but let's keep some perspective here. This team's way ahead of schedule, the best team in the country. Damn, it's good to be a Buckeye. That Illinois game, let's also put this into perspective. That might be a playoff team. I want you to look with me at their schedule for the rest of the year here. They start out with a game out at Washington this Saturday, which will be a banger, their toughest game remaining. Really, whoever wins that, we win either way, if we're just talking about building the Buckeye resume. But if they win that game against Washington, they have one more remaining road game, and that's at Wisconsin, where the Buckeyes will play this Saturday, and poor Luke Fickell. They've also got Rutgers at home, Maryland at home, and Northwestern at home. I'll read that to you again. At Washington, at home for Rutgers, at home for Maryland, to Wisconsin, then Northwestern, which basically means if they get through Washington, they're going to end the season as a 10-2 team with 2 losses to 2 top 5 teams. And a lot of people thought that Indiana loss was so bad it was going to disqualify them. There's going to be 9-3 teams in that playoff this year. They are definitely in. If they beat Washington this Saturday, Illinois is a playoff team. Now, when you look at the Illinois game, and maybe you couldn't run the ball as well as you wanted to, and some things didn't go as well as you would have wanted them to. Well, it was a playoff team, right? When we play a playoff caliber team, that's a true survive and advance type game. All that matters is the W. And then you worry about the nitpick stuff later on. So I think they played a pretty damn good game. And when you factor in those turnovers weren't gifts, they took those. And that is a great sign. Hopefully we can see some more of that. Remember last year they came into the season, a big focus was going to be to cause turnovers. And we saw them really trying. Michigan State, a couple peanut punches by Lathan Ransom. Maybe it was Hancock. It was Lathan. And we saw like a big push for that. And then it kind of fizzled out. Maybe this one will spark some more of that, which would be great. Loved K-Mac's comments on that. He's like, I'm a big guy and they're kind of small guys, so I can take it whenever I want. All right, take it some more, big guy. Take it some more.
That's as low as it can be. And I apologize. I apologize to our guys, to not be ready, to not have them ready. I'm dumbfounded in a lot of ways, but that's my job. And, this is a game we've been talking about since January, and I've been doing a lot of things to make sure we were ready and prepared, and obviously we were not. But it was something that emotionally we knew we had to be ready for, and we were not. So I'm crushed, disappointed in myself and in our team, but we got one thing to do, and we got to keep swinging. So ask me the questions you need to ask me.
Enter in this week to a game with Wisconsin, which we're not really going to be reviewing much, right? Like, I don't know what there is to review about this Wisconsin team. They're terrible. I listened to Luke Fickell's press conference the other day after the 37-0 loss on Saturday. He's a defeated man, and it is sad It really is. I expected so much. Everybody did. I mean, that's honestly of recent hires. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin felt like the most perfect fit that there could ever be. And the way he has screwed it up has now got people thinking, like, back to Cincinnati, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was just his hires with Freeman and Denbrock that propped that whole operation up, because he just doesn't, he seems clueless. He seems clueless, and that's a shame. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to roll, but I will holler at you tomorrow. I'll see you tonight at Buckeye Huddle. I won't be live, but I'll definitely put something out there as well. So talk to you then. Have a great day. Juck 'em Bucks out.